Hi there everyone, my name's Nikki Windsor and I am the Jungle Goddess. I'm a culinary wellness coach helping you make diet and lifestyle changes to help your health and well-being. And today I want to talk to you about my favourite pan. This recently came up when I was talking about different types of oils, so I thought I'd talk to you about cast iron. So I love cast iron. And if you treat them right, they'll last forever. And they can actually get better with age. Now, cast, you can get either raw cast iron, which is like this. So this is a raw cast iron pan. Or you can get enameled cast. So I have here a Dutch oven. So this Dutch oven is enameled. It's got this coating on it that protects the cast. So the cast isn't exposed, the metal. So with these, you don't really get any rust unless you've got chips in the enamel. You can also get cast pans. So like this is a cast, this is enameled on the outside. The lid is enameled, but the inside is the raw metal. So this is one of my charity shop finds, and that Dutch oven was one of my lockdown street finds, which was great. And cast iron is pretty cheap, or you can pick up very cheap pans. Some of things like the Lodge are more expensive. But if you, I work with £10 cast iron pans. Did so in Costa Rica as well. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on cast. Now cast iron, it's really good at maintaining temperature because it's a really good conductor of heat. So when it gets hot, it stays hot. So when you've got it up at that heat, it will maintain it, and so it makes it very easy to cook at lower temperatures as well. And if you season it well, you really don't need to use much oil. Now they need to be taken care of. So you'd that's something that we call seasoning. So there is like an initial seasoning that you do with a pan, and then there's like an ongoing maintenance seasoning. So I think this one I've only used once. I bought some nice small ones for taking on camping. Now you can buy them already seasoned, but I tend to season them again myself as soon as I buy them. Now this one, when I bought it, as I said, I picked this one up from a charity shop, and this inside, it was brown with rust, absolutely covered in rust. Don't let that dissuade you, because as you can see, they're very easy to clean up. So that initial seasoning, what you're going to want to do is use soap and water, hot water, soap, and steel wool or a steel scourer, because you're really wanting to clean that surface. And if it's it won't require much if it's a brand new pan, but if it's old and rusted, then you'd want to give it a really good clean. You want to dry your pan then. It's really important to always thoroughly dry a cast iron pan, because any water will rust iron. Now you can try it off with a towel, but that really doesn't take all of the moisture out. So always put it onto the stove afterwards and dry it with heat until it's really dry. So once you've got like that clean pan, got rid of all of the rust, then you're going to do something what we call seasoning. So seasoning is applying a thin layer of oil to all of the surfaces of the pan. So you're going to do the inside, the sides, the back, and the handle. Now what this is for, it's cast iron is actually porous, and that's why we seal it. So the seasoning is really sealing. Now, flaxseed or linseed is considered really the best, because when it dries, well, what you're actually doing is you're covering it, then you're heating it, and it's that heating process which polymerizes the oil, and flaxseed polymerizes the hardest. Now, flaxseed or linseed is more common in the UK. It's quite expensive, but you use very little. Now, I couldn't get hold of that in Costa Rica, so I always used to use coconut oil, and you can use any type of oil really, but linseed is considered the best. So once you've initially seasoned it, it's really the maintenance of that polymerized oil layer that gives the pan its non-stick quality. So we've washed and prepared the pan. Now we're going to pour a little bit of oil into it. And what you're going to do, you pour a little bit of oil into your pan, and you're going to wipe it all the way around. Now you want to do that with some like kitchen towel. If it's got a rough surface, then it might catch the towels. You maybe a more resistant kitchen towel, or I use like a lint-free cloth. Wipe it all over. Now you only want a thin layer of oil, so you're going to wipe off any excess once you've covered all of the pan. Now, in order to polymerize that oil, you've got to heat the pan until the oil goes above its smoke point. Now, what that does is it hardens the oil, which seals the pan, and it also stops the oil from going rancid. Now, if you want to find out about smoke point, then I'll put a link to my fats and cooking oils video, so you can learn more about it. So for that initial seasoning, what a lot of people do is they heat it in the oven for like an hour at quite a high temperature. I tend to do that on the first seasoning of my pan. So put it into, once you've covered it in oil, put it into the oven and then heat on, leave it there for an hour, turn the oven off and let it cool. Now you should get like a glassy finish. I've got another pan here. You can probably see, you can see the reflection of the light. So that's got a really nice glassy finish to it. Now, when you're cooking with cast, you always want to preheat the pan. A lot of people find that their food sticks in these. Well, a lot of issues with food sticking are due to the pan being cold or it's not hot enough. Also, don't move, especially when you're doing meat, don't move your meat around too much. Let it cook until a crust is forming, which is really the caramelization of that fat. Now, if you find that you're trying to, let's say you're doing a steak, you're trying to flip that steak, but it's not letting go, it's probably not done enough yet. So leave it a little longer, and if your pan's well seasoned, then it should release when the meat is ready to flip. Now, some people say not to use acidic foods, but that is if the acidic food comes into contact with the raw cast. So if you have a well-seasoned pan, you should have no problem with that. And I regularly use acidic foods in mine. Great thing about cast iron is that you can go from the stovetop to the oven. So that means you can really nicely sear food, so like sear steak at a high heat on the top, so you get that caramelization of the fat and that flavour, and then add in your other ingredients and finish it off in a lower temperature in the oven. Now, cast iron is so versatile. You can use it to make pies, to make cakes. That Dutch oven, or this Dutch oven, Really good for making bread or sourdough. You can sear meat, make stews, Spanish omelettes, pizza, lasagna, and many more. So once you've cooked your meal, do clean and dry your pan after use. And it's best to clean it as soon as you can, and preferably before the pan has cooled. Once it's seasoned, you don't really want to be using detergent, because that detergent is going to lift off your seasoning layer. So one of the best ways of doing it is salt, because salt acts as an abrasive. Or bicarbonate of soda. I tend to use a bit of bicarb of soda, and I've got my little eco brush here. It's a really stiff brush. So I put a little bit of this in, scrub my pan, and that's really to lift off any of the burnt bits, and that's enough. Rinse it with hot water, and then you want to dry your pan. So put it onto your stovetop, dry it. Then you want to re-season it. So add a little bit of oil, wipe that oil all around the pan, and return it to the heat. Heat that pan until that oil starts to smoke. Turn off the heat, and once it's cooled, you can store your pan. Now, cast iron needs to be used regularly, so do use it for whatever. Do dry it on heat, because it must be bone dry. Any water will cause it to rust. Some people say never use soap. I say only use it if you have to, and if you do, always season afterwards. Now I recommend, is another one of my cast iron pans. I really do recommend these silicone pan handle sleeves, because remember, they get very, very hot. So these are very reasonable to buy, and you can just slide them over the end. I've got a couple of these, so you can easily change them between your pans. And yeah, as I said, remember, cast iron maintains its heat very well. So do be cautious when touching it, because even after you've left it for a while, that pan can still be really hot. I have quite a lot. You don't need this many. One good 10 or this is a 10 inch. This is a 10 inch pan, a 10 or a 12 inch pan. Should suffice for most needs. This one's fairly shallow. You can get deeper ones. Deeper ones are good for doing more of a stew. I only got these little ones for taking camping with me. And some sort of Dutch oven. So, one 10 or 12 inch pan, and one Dutch oven, and that's going to deal with most of your cooking needs. So I say, I really love cast iron, and I definitely recommend it. So yeah, get yourself a cast. It is so versatile. Do you use cast? Let me know. What's your favourite thing to do in your cast iron pan? All right, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.